Okay, so on the fuel tank itself, okay, so here's the one line that goes to the back that I showed you just now. And then this is the line that goes to the fuel pump itself. And then it goes also back there to the back and goes running around. And then there's the other line that goes out and pushes forward. And then here's fuel fill, those two that I showed you up at the front. And then I'm gonna show you the pump itself. Here's the pump itself. You got 2 ports, and if you have the Lobasso model, it'll have that third, to where it'll pull out. You can pull out of there without the pump pushing. And this is what my problem is. You see on the end of that there's stuff stuck on that little filter there inside the tank. This is what I dumped out of the bottom of the tank. So now I got to rinse this tank out really well. And if you look in there, you can kind of see it's kind of grimy in there. So all this has to come out. All this has to be cleaned out. And then, because the problem that this van was having was it'll run for a while. It'll run fine. You start it up. It sits there. It runs fine. Idles fine. And then you start going. It'll drive fine for a while. And then all of a sudden, it'll start like losing power, blowing black smoke, and die. What I believe was happening is this stuff here was building up around that filter and shutting off the fuel. And so then once all this stuff got around that filter, it made it to where the fuel couldn't get through. You couldn't get enough pressure through that fuel, through that line to keep it going, and it would die. And I throw a code, low fuel pressure, low fuel rail pressure. And so I decided I'm going to take the tank off and take a look at it and see what's going on here. And I believe this is the problem. All this crap and that's built up inside the tank needs to be cleaned out. So I'm gonna get after that, get this all cleaned up, cleaned out, and put it back on, refill the tank, and see if it stops that issue. I chose to use the pressure washer. I'm gonna take a look inside. This is the inside of the tank after I washed it with the pressure washer. Yeah, I didn't know how else to do this, but the pressure washer. And so now I'm gonna let it dry for a while. Make sure I get all that water out. I could use heat also. That alcohol stuff that they use to dry out water in fuel tanks. But I'm gonna let it sit and dry. I'm gonna let it sit and dry now that I got all that crap cleaned out, and then fill it up and see if that fixed my problem. I'm gonna clean that filter, the fuel pump too, get all the stuff that I can out of it. Probably just blow back through it backwards and see if I can clean it out that way, and hope it works. Yeah. Okay, so I believe what I have thought is now confirmed, that this thing has been picking up all this crap that was in the bottom of this tank, because this is the part that goes under on the bottom of the fuel pump here, and I took it off and that's what I got. Oh my goodness, look at that. Look at all the crap on there. I got some cleaning to do. Yep. Here we go. Gotta clean all this up. So, got that all nice and cleaned up now. Got that cleaned out. I'm gonna blow through these lines too, and try to make sure everything is good. And then we'll put it back together and finish letting that tank dry out, we'll put it back together and see how it does. Hopefully it's good. Okay, so this is the tool I bought at Harbor Freight. It's a vacuum pump. And what I'm doing here is I pump it up, right? And I hooked it up to this line here, which goes to the tank. And it goes through all of this stuff. And then this is the other end of it. So I plug this end of it, I create a vacuum, then I'll just pop my finger off like that and clear all this stuff, clear everything out of here. Is what I'm trying to do. Is I want this to be clean also. And then once I get that all cleaned out, everything's cleaned out, in the inside of this tank is dry, then I'll put it all back together, put it back on, fill up the tank, and we'll see how well of a job I did on this. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to be pretty difficult to prime, so I'll show you how I make that process a little bit faster and easier. So this is what I'm going to use to dry it out. I have it on low, not high. I don't want to put too much heat in there, even though it'll take quite a bit of heat to ignite diesel, but still, I don't want to put too much heat inside this tank, but I want to dry it out so that I can put this thing back together. I don't want any water in my fuel when I put it back together. Yeah, so I'm drying it out now, and so I can put it back together. I'm anxious. I want to see what happens. I want to see how this thing is going to work. So here we are, drying out the tank to put it back together. You might have another way to do it, but I'm just using a hair blow dryer on low to put a little heat in there and kind of dry up that water that I put in there earlier. Yee! Okay, so when you put this fuel pump back in, there's a little arrow right here. You want to match those two arrows up. There's an arrow on the pump, and there's an arrow on here. They match up. Easiest way I found to do it is to put the rubber in first, and then set the pump in, push down on the pump because it's spring loaded, hold it down, get this ring on, and screw the ring down. And if you put it so that this arrow is back a little bit, and you push down on it, and then you tighten it, and so then when you finish, this whole thing will turn a little bit, hopefully just a little bit, and then it'll turn, and you'll be able to line it up with that mark right there. That's how I did it. Just put it back a little bit further, put it back a little bit, and so then when you tighten it and the whole thing turns, it'll turn. I got a wee bit off, but it's pretty dang on close. Hopefully that tolerance is more than what I got there. And then we hook up the hoses, hook up that hose, then up under there we'll hook up this hose and hook up that hose, and yep. This is the jack that I prefer to use when doing fuel tanks. It's a transmission jack because it gives you a nice big surface area to set the tank on and lift it up evenly, so you're not like that one over there. You just got that one little area where you're picking. This, you have a big flat area to lift that whole thing up. Even if it's not empty, it makes it a whole heck of a lot easier putting it back in. I already got it back in. I'm tightening everything back up right now, and I'll be filling it up in a minute, and then I'll be able to show you what I do when I know that it's going to be difficult to get it started, because either it's cold out or a lost prime or whatever the case. In this case, it's going to take a while to get this thing primed. So I'll show you just a minute. Okay, so this is the big secret right here. Propane. I got a line, put it into my intake, and I have my daughter crank it, and it'll start. Watch. Ready? Start it. Now I stuffed that around it, so then it's just propane going straight in. And so now it should start and run till it's primed. Okay, go ahead. Not primed yet. Okay, do it again. I just gotta play with the amount of propane that I put into it. Hold it to the floor. And I just got it barely a little bit. A little bit of propane going into it. And the propane is off. We're on throttle now. There we go. Propane is off. And system's primed. There we go. And that's how I prime a system that doesn't want to be primed. Propane. And you just barely, you don't have to give it a lot of propane. Just a little bit. And it'll fire off. And once you fire it off, just let it run for a little bit until the throttle actually takes over. You can feel the difference. You can hear the difference. When you step on it, you'll hear it rev up more. And you can turn off your propane. And there you go. Rev it a little bit. Looks better. Okay.